Hi guys, welcome to Exploration Saturday. My name is Sarah and today we're going to be talking about troublemakers on the trail. So we're going to talk about how some of Lewis and Clark's soldiers got into a little bit of trouble early on in the expedition. Now you know, with your parents you might sometimes break the rules. Maybe you do something you're not supposed to, you break curfew, you get into the Halloween candy from this October. And of course your parents usually have to give you a punishment. Maybe they ground you, maybe no TV, no phone, maybe an extra week of dishes. So just like what happens at home, Lewis and Clark sometimes had to dealt out punishments for their soldiers. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the troubles they got into, some of the punishments, and then we're going to talk about one soldier. His name was Moses Reed, and he's kind of famous here in the Siouxland area because he got into trouble right here in our backyard. So we're going to talk a little bit about him, and then I'm going to show you how to make some lookout binoculars to kind of track down those troublemakers. And so early on the expedition, Lewis and Clark got together all these men who have never worked before. And so there were some issues of the men learning how to work together. And because it's a military expedition, they also had to learn how to follow orders and obey the rules and work together as a team. Because some of these men hadn't been soldiers before, so they were a little rough on the edges. Some of those troubles they got into were fighting, some ran away, some had mutinous talk, which is basically saying some really bad things about the captains and the groups. Some stole, some were leaving without permission, some were sleeping on guard duty, some were disobedient, weren't following orders. And all of these things could really endanger the expedition. It could get the group into some trouble because remember, Lewis and Clark, they were sailing up the Missouri River to the Pacific Ocean, and they have never been here before, so they have no idea what they will encounter: bad weather, dangerous terrain. So they really needed their men to work together as a team, to follow orders, and to be a really strong military group. And of course, it took some time to work out these issues. One of the men early on, it was William Werner and John Potts. Those two got into a fight one night. And just like happens if you get in a fight with your siblings, your parents break you up. And their punishment actually was to go build a hut for a washerwoman. This was before they had started the expedition. They were camped outside St. Louis at a little camp called Camp Dubois. They had a lady there who was helping doing the laundry, and so their job was to help build her a little house that she could live in while she's there helping washing the laundry, and that was their punishment. So it's kind of like when your parents make you go do more dishes or do the extra laundry. Not too bad of a punishment. There was another group of soldiers early on in the expedition: John Shield, Robert Fraser, and John Coulter. Now their crime was a little worse. They were soldiers and they decided they did not want to obey orders from their sergeant, Sergeant Ordway. They refused to follow his directions, his orders, and they actually threatened him a little bit. And this is not a good thing to have in the military. You're supposed to follow the orders of your sergeant. That keeps you safe and it's good to do. And we don't know what punishment the captains gave them, but we do know the soldiers, they asked for the captain's forgiveness and they promised to do better. And they did. They finally, later on the expedition, they were very well behaved. Another soldier, Alexander Willard, later on in the expedition, he fell asleep while he was on guard duty. And guard duty is basically when you're sitting outside of the camp, just kind of keeping an eye on things at night, make sure there's no dangers, no threats. And he fell asleep on the job, which could be really dangerous. Say if you have a stampeding bison running through camp, he can't warn the soldiers that there's a dangerous animal approaching the camp. And so the captains could not have their men falling asleep on the trail when they're supposed to be guarding the other soldiers. And so his punishment was a little bit more severe. Back in the day, one of the punishments they used was flogging. And this is a punishment we don't use today because it's very harsh, but you actually would get hit on the back with like a stick or a whip, and that's what they called flogging in the military. Luckily, the military doesn't do this anymore because it's way too severe and it's no longer in practice. But 200 years ago, that was a very common punishment for the times. Another gentleman later on the expedition, John Newman, he was the one who was talking mutiny. If you ever see any pirate movies, you always see the pirates having a mutiny, and that means they're going against their captain and they're going to take over. It's kind of like that. John was saying some things that were not very nice, and so the captains actually have another trial, and he's kicked out of the expedition. They're like, we don't want someone who can't be a team player. That's not good for us, because if we can't work as a team, we're never going to complete the mission. We'll never make it to the ocean. Now, right here in Siouxland, if you're from Sioux City, you might have heard of Moses Reed. While the captains were traveling upriver right through our neighborhood, it was August 1804, it was hot. They were just 3 months into the expedition, things were going great. But one of their soldiers, Moses Reed, came up to them and he said he had forgotten a knife back at the old camp downriver. So he's like, hey captains, can I quickly go downriver? I'll grab my lost knife and I'll come straight back to camp here. And the captains, trusting their soldiers, are like, Moses, you can go down the river. We'll wait a few hours for you. You come straight back to camp when you're all done. And they wait, and they wait, and then they check Moses's tent, and they realize Moses has taken all of his belongings. You know, he's packed up his suitcase. He's stolen some supplies, and they realize he's deserting the expedition. And to desert a military expedition means to basically run away from your job. And because it's a military expedition, that's really a bad thing to do. You can't desert your post. That's basically you're just throwing away your responsibilities and you're dining and dashing. And so they couldn't have that because that would set a really bad example for all the other soldiers, because if everybody ran away, they would be in danger from dangerous animals. They would never complete the mission. So they had to set an example for all the other soldiers. They had a trial. They court-martialed Moses Reed. He was kicked out, and he was made to run the gauntlet. And basically, the gauntlet was all the other soldiers lined up in 2 lines facing each other, and Moses Reed would have to walk back and forth between them as they hit him on the back with sticks or whips. And as you can imagine, that would be very painful, and we don't do that today. But running the gauntlet was a pretty common punishment back then, the early 1800s. And you can imagine Moses Reed was pretty bad shape after that. But he did have to get kicked out of the expedition. He's eventually sent home in disgrace. And we actually don't know what happens to him. All the historical records kind of go silent about Moses and what happens to him after he returns to St. Louis. Hopefully, he turned a leaf and did a better job, whatever he decided to do after he got home. So to help the captains search down for Moses Reed, we are going to make lookout binoculars. So this can help you hunt down any troublemakers. You can go out and look for Moses Reed. The set I have here, I kind of made an abstract prairie grass. You got the green prairie grass, you got some pink flowers. It's very abstract, so you can make something like that. And all you need for your binoculars are 2 clean toilet paper rolls, or if you have a paper towel roll, you can cut it in half. You'll need some string, twine, whatever you want to use. A hot glue gun. If you're going to use a hot glue gun, make sure you have help from your parents. I have some regular glue here, scissors, tape, any kind of decorations you want to glue, markers to decorate it. And basically anything you find lying around the house, you can definitely use to decorate your binoculars. And for this binocular, I think I'm going to try to make a turkey. We're right after Thanksgiving here, so I think I'm going to make a turkey binoculars. And we'll see if I'm able to do it. So with your 2 toilet paper rolls, you're going to poke a hole, 1 on each roll on the top, kind of near that rim. You're going to poke a hole in one side, take your other roll, poke another hole on the other side, and this is where we're going to string that string through. We're going to thread the string through it for your neck strap, so you're going to hang on your neck. Now on the opposite sides of the holes, that's where you're going to glue the two paper rolls together. So leave those sides blank because they're going to be glued together. And then after you got the two holes, one hole on one roll, one hole on the other roll, you're going to glue it in between there. You can decorate your rolls, or depending on what your design is, you can glue them together first. And since I'm going to try to make a turkey, I'm going to glue my two rolls together. So I have a hole right here, a hole right here, so I want to glue right in between there. So you grab a glue gun, make sure you have your help from an adult, from your parents, because glue guns can be really, really hot. Add a little glue, and we're just going to glue it together. So I make sure my holes are still on the opposite side, because I need those open so I can thread the string through it. The glue gun will dry pretty quickly. If you don't have a glue gun, you can definitely use regular glue. You just have to give it a little longer to dry. Perfect. So I know I'm going to thread the string in the back of the roll so I can hang off of my neck here. So I'm going to put my eyes on my turkey at the front of my rolls here. I have two googly eyes. I'm going to use a little hot glue because I want to make sure they stick really well, and be really careful though, because I don't want to burn myself there. I can put it right at the edge of my binoculars. And grab another glue gun. I would definitely recommend using a smaller glue gun if you have one available. There we go. I'm going to make sure those stick pretty well to my binoculars. So my turkey has eyes. Of course, my turkey needs a mouth. So I have some orange construction paper, and I'm going to cut him out a mouth, a beak that I think I'm going to glue to the bottom of my binoculars. Let's see here. There we go, and I think I'm just going to glue it right to the bottom rim of my two rolls. And I'm just going to use a little hot glue. I could use regular glue too. And be careful when I press down, because that heat from the glue gun can definitely go right through the paper. It's very hot. So right now I got a mouth for my turkey. I have the eyes. Of course, the turkey has feathers. So I have a few feathers right here. And I think I'm just going to add them all around the paper rolls. I'm just going to use regular glue for that because the hot glue would soak right through the feathers and probably burn myself a little bit. Now you can design your binoculars however you want. These are kind of your lookout binoculars. Just keep an eye out for any troublemakers. Now Moses Reed, the one that ran away, he almost got away too. He was missing for about 2 weeks. He was following the river back home, probably to St. Louis. And we don't know why he ran away. The captains never wrote in their journals why Moses Reed decided to run away. Maybe he thought, this is way too much work. I don't want to be here. It's hot. The mosquitoes are horrible. But he has signed up to be part of this military expedition. So you really just can't run away whenever you want to. And so the captain sent some trackers. So these are men who are pretty good trackers because they're hunters. So they're used to looking for signs in the dirt or the grass or the trees. And they were able to capture Moses Reed and bring him back. And then that's when they had a trial. He was court-martialed, which is really some fancy term for a military trial, and then he's kicked out. But eventually, after a few months, once they reached North Dakota, that's where they built a winter camp. After that, most of the men had learned how to work together. We even have Captain Lewis. He wrote in his journal at Fort Mandan, that was their winter camp in North Dakota, that all the men are getting along. They're all excited to continue the journey, and that they're all working together. So just those first few months where they have a few men fighting, a few men not taking orders, a few running away. But eventually all the men kind of learn how to work together. They understand the mission to get to the Pacific Ocean, and they really work together really nicely. All right, there's my last feather. So I think I might have to add some tape a little bit later. Feel free to add tape, glue, whatever you want to use. But I think that's a pretty good looking turkey. And now I still have those 2 holes to thread my string through to make a neck strap. I have some twine right here I'm going to use. I'm going to make a pretty long strap right there. And all you do, you'll take one end of your string, thread it through one of the holes. There we go. You're going to knot it around that hole there. Tie it pretty nice so it doesn't get loose. You're going to take your other end of your string, thread it through the other hole there. Knot it around that hole again. And so basically you're creating a strap for your binoculars. That way they can hang around your neck when you're out running about. And there we go. That can go right over your head, and you can look through your binoculars. And we even can try to make a turkey one for Thanksgiving, which I think he turned out pretty nice too. So guys, I will have the activity sheets in the comments below. Feel free to post any pictures of your binoculars or if you have questions. And we look forward to seeing you next time.